This tutorial is for a t-test for a slope. Okay, so think significance test. We got HO, HA, right? When you're doing slopes, HO is always going to say that beta, our population slope, is 0, which would imply that there's no association. And HA will say that there is an association. I should say it'll imply that there is an association. If beta is less than 0, negative, greater than 0, positive, not equal to 0, just some type of association is present. Okay? There's really no way around stat edit if we're working with slopes that the data's got to be entered in if you're going to use the calculator feature. And again, I think it's worth noting, if you know what you're doing with Minitab and you're given Minitab, you don't need to use the calculator. Okay? You can get everything you need. Now, the other thing that comes with a significance test, in addition to, HO and HA, really what we're going to the calculator for is in our do step, we need to have a t-score, p-value, and degrees of freedom. That's where we got to find all 3 of those things. Okay, so that's kind of our goal for what to get here. This has the example about the length of stay for your explanatory variable in minutes at a restaurant, and list 2 is the tip that was left. And again, this was exploring to see if there was an association. Did parties that stayed longer also leave bigger tips? There was 12 pieces of data. You've got the first 7. Certainly pause here if you need to get those first 7 in. Whoops. I went too far. And there's the last 5. Okay, that gets you to your 12. Take your time with that. Make sure it's in properly and you've got it, exactly correct. Once you have that, head over to stat. Oops. Test. And there's your linear regression t-test. Okay, as always, it'll verify that the x variable was in 1, y was in 2. All right, so this is for HA. Notice I went over here and highlighted a greater than. In this particular problem, the individual doing the project was thinking that there potentially would be a positive association, or that groups who stayed longer also left bigger tips. Okay. So we make that greater than 0. This could actually be one area where you may like the calculator, because if you go off of Minitab, okay, I'm thinking specifically in terms of p-values, because the Minitab gives you everything, enough to show the work to get the p-value, and enough to show the work to get the t-score, the t-score itself, and the p-value. But the Minitab always gives you a doubled p-value. So you have to look at HA and think to yourself, am I doing a one-sided test or a 2? If it's a 1 and you want to go off of the p-value from Minitab, you have to remember to cut it in half. Whereas if it's a 2-sided test, you can just take the number from Minitab directly. So notice here under that p-value, it's exactly half. I think the Minitab tells you 0.247 because it's 2-sided. Okay? Calculator, you don't have to remember. That could be one advantage. And if you're given the raw data, you could always go and use the calculator. You've got t-score, you've got p-value, you've got degrees of freedom. Okay? You've got everything you need there. So I think the test feature is potentially more useful than the interval, where I don't really see a point the whole chapter where you would use the interval. You certainly can't. The feature on the calculator, you could if you want. This one really could be nice. If you're willing to just enter the data, you might find it more straightforward and more consistent with other tests that we've done to take this calculator approach. But at the end of the day, as far as assisting you in an FRQ like that, Minitab calculator, it's up to you.